Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the episode you've all been waiting for of the Cats and Bolts podcast. I believe this is episode number 37. Last week I thought it was number 27 and Ben corrected me. Last week was 36. 37, probably the one episode I was dreading, but I'm super happy for my co-host here. Stanley Cup preview with Mr. Panther himself, Bill Lindsay. Bill, thanks for coming down.
Thank you, Serena. We got a firm line here, don't we? Right here.
Just before this,
we got all the Panther stuff. We got a little lightning, but
literally, just before we went on the air, Bill was like, "Oh, I'm like, there's a reason. This is all my side is clear, and Billy's got all the Panther stuff." But here we are. First of all, thanks for coming down. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it as always.
I'm a little bummed that you didn't bring Junie.
Yeah, Junie pops. We just had lunch and he was going back. He's getting around though. He's excited. You talk about your team. Pops, yeah, my dad's off the charts excited. 93 years old, screaming at the TV, anything. He comes to the games occasionally, but he doesn't get emotional about sports or anything. But some of these games, my wife says, when you're on the road, he's yelling at the refs. She's upstairs, not even paying attention, yelling. Here's my dad, 93 years, just yelling at the TV screen. So it's been a long time for him. He's fully invested. I'm going to be excited. I know Edmonton and the Panthers, and 30 years. We've been waiting a long time. We've been going at it. My dad's been a diehard, as I know everyone is for their fan base, but my dad has put so much emotion and intensity in this team. He's rooting hard. I think that some of the favorite things that I have about Junie, I love sitting at the games with him because of what comes out of his mouth. To hear a 93-year-old man say the things that he says, he gets a kick out of it. And I remember we sit obviously in the press box. We're way down at one end, and the face-off was down in the opposite circle. Mm-hmm. And he said something about Bedard, and I was like, I can barely see that that's Bedard. How the hell can your old eyes see that? And I was like, of course I can talk shit. I'm like, you can actually see that? And he just always laughs. He's got better eyes. Yeah, he can see far away. It's not an issue for him.
That guy is a one of a kind. They do not make him like Junie anymore. Yep. Okay, so what the fans have all been waiting for, obviously, is you to come here. You were the one person that Rod and I were like, we got to get Bill. I can't think of a person who is more represents the organization better than yourself. You've been there. You've played in the Stanley Cup finals. You've been there. You've done all of these things. And, before we kind of get into what we think is going to happen and whatever else, just talk about how proud and happy you are of this happening again for the second year in a row.
Yeah, it's exciting. And for me, coming down and coming over to the expansion draft from Quebec and got my start here with the Panthers when they got going in 1993-94 and have 7-8 years and then go through some other teams, but come back in the broadcasting role. And this was the team I identified with. It was in my blood, the community. I fell in love with South Florida as soon as I stepped foot off the plane. So it's the whole organization and what we've had to go through, the bad years, the lean years, get back to that Stanley Cup last year, which was phenomenal. And you get this group of individuals that are pushing so hard, and you become such a fan of the team, even though you're broadcast and you're part of it. But the community runs through my blood. The team runs through my blood. And to see these group and try and carry that over the finish line, once you retire playing, it's the ultimate dream for myself. I would never touch the Stanley Cup unless I was a player that won it or was part of an organization. This is my only grasp or hope at it, and this team has really put it on display. They made the playoffs for 4 consecutive years, earned the trust of the fan base, and here they are with another a shot that feels somewhat different than it did last year going against Vegas. This is going to be 2 teams fully rested, looking pretty healthy, going head-to-head, and Connor McDavid on the big stage. Even as a Panther fan, we have all been waiting for that.
He's something else. And I want your opinion on this because one of the things the viewpoints that I've had this year in the playoffs, there were some strong teams in the West that, and even in the East, I guess, with the Rangers, that I don't think has as good of a showing as they thought. And I feel like there was a lot of teams that their captain didn't come up to the plate when they needed, Vancouver being one of them.
Yeah.
Trouba now saying he had a broken ankle. I mean,
Yeah,
sure,
that's
maybe,
tough to play
but
through, yeah.
sure. But I feel like the difference is a guy like Connor McDavid and a guy like Alexander Barkov step up to the plate when they need to.
Yeah, it's been a big difference. And we talked about Connor McDavid and his leadership skills. That tough start for Edmonton, the last to first at this point, bottom of the standings, and Chris Knoblauch's able to come in, so that was a tough start. And you go to the Panthers side of it, and it was a mandate coming in from training camp from Paul Maurice. He pushed them in training camp as hard as they've ever been pushed. And talking to Paul about it, he said they not only embraced it, they went over and above, and he knew maybe we got something different here with this group. And it was a mission statement right from the drop of the puck, not only the captain Alexander Barkov, but down that lineup. But it set the tempo with both the captains. They play so damn hard on each side. If you're a second line guy, a third line guy, it filters down because everyone is just working and pulling on the rope in the same direction. If you're not, forget about it. You're not going to be in the lineup. And that's what's happened with this Panther group. It's like a pack of wolves, all for one, one for all. And on the Edmonton side of it, you don't get to this point without the superstars and Connor McDavid, but having that filter down into the rest of your lineup. And both these teams have been able to find balance in the second and third and fourth lines and contributions in kind of other areas. And interesting real storyline coming into this, 28 for 28 on the penalty kill for the Oilers, 31 for 33 is the stretch the Panthers are
It's
on.
insane.
And both these teams' power plays, we know about the Edmonton power play, but the power play for the Panthers can be different. These special teams and watching these PK groups go about it might be the huge separator as we come down and play this series. But lots of storylines. But the captains and the leadership, they have set the tones on both sides.
Well, there was a point in I think it was the Boston series, watching the Panthers, and I personally felt at certain times, because there was times, or usually the first period, where Boston just came out and outplayed the Panthers right away. And the line that was doing a lot for the Panthers, I felt that was doing the most, was the Rodriguez line. They never stopped working the whole playoffs. They haven't quit.
Yeah, they haven't quit. Rodriguez has played well. He's bounced up and down the lineup, played with different line mates, and that's been a big thing. Right now he's with Kachuk and Bennett. He's been able to go. A lot of time he was with Luo Storina and Lundell. Tarasenko goes down into that line. But all those, that's where Paul Maurice in the top nine has a lot of flexibility with Tarasenko coming on board. Tarasenko was up there with Reinhart Barkov a lot. Just one game doesn't click for Hagee, goes up into that situation, Tarasenko. So he's able to manipulate those top nine and just feel comfortable throughout the course of a series. And don't expect if something goes down and there's a little downtime against Edmonton where it's not quite working the way that Paul Maurice thinks that it's supposed to be, that the shuffling of the deck comes up quickly. But Rodriguez is a big part of it. Lundell has played his best hockey. Luo Storina, you point to everyone. Sam Bennett, how hard he plays. They play an incredibly tough, hard brand of style. That's it's the attrition so far that if you go against Tampa Bay, Boston, and the New York Rangers, of staying with the Panthers for 60 minutes. 20 minutes, yes. 30, maybe half a game. But the full 60 minutes when the Panthers are going full tilt, they have the ability to wear you down.
For sure. And it was when he was playing with Lundell that I noticed how hard they worked. I was really impressed. But, it's kind of the same. So on the flip side with the Oilers lineup, getting Adam Henrique back in the lineup, that completely changes everything. Because they can put Henrique, they can move Evander Kane from the second line to the fourth line to the third line to the whatever. They pull Corey Perry in and out of the lineup. So it's similar how it goes. And what I like about the coaching styles both of these coaches is that they're not scared to make a change when they have to. If Knoblauch needs to get his team going, he puts McDavid and Draisaitl together, and then he splits them up again.
Yes.
And both of the teams have the talent and the ability that the players can do that on the fly. That never happened 20 years ago.
No, it's changed. You come to the rink, and it's very important that you have an identity. When you come as a second, third, I was a third, fourth line guy at times. But the most success in the teams that I'd been on I knew my exact role coming to the rink, and I felt part of the team. And there was enough ice time to go around. You're going to get 8, 9, 10 minutes. And the Panthers are able to distribute, play 4 lines, and that's where I talk about it, the 6 defensemen. They just come after you wave after wave. The difference that you see with this Edmonton group that you haven't seen in the past is that it isn't just Draisaitl, McDavid. They've been able to filter in the 3rd, 4th line and give them roles on the penalty kill. And it's made a big difference. Draisaitl and McDavid aren't out there killing penalties, playing an extra couple minutes a night. And a lot of games, especially in that Dallas series, you get McDavid and Draisaitl around 21 minutes, 20 minutes. They become much more effective when you're not stretched out around 25, 26. And when they're down around that, someone has to play the minutes down below, get up to 9, 10, down into your 3rd and 4th lines. So everyone, the Corey Perrys of the world's, whoever you want to point out in the lineup, you talked about Adam Henrique and the differences. McLeod, so he gets put on a second line. Corey Perry gets put on the second line with Draisaitl. All of a sudden, they're coming to the rink. They're excited. It's not just going to be Draisaitl, McDavid. Every time you jump over the boards. Yes, you can do it late if there's a problem, but there is identified roles in Edmonton, and there is more of a purpose to the whole group. And I believe that has helped them not only become where they are now, but become a better team. And that's what's happened on the Panthers side. You have to become a great team that bonds together to get to this point.
Yeah, you can definitely see, and this is not to insult anybody out there watching, but I'm assuming most of the Panthers fans haven't watched the Oilers all the playoffs. I get that. The games are late, whatever. And why would they? But a guy like Connor Brown took a lot of flack in Edmonton this year.
Yep.
But him being on that 4th line, his forechecking is just something I was not expecting. And like you said, it gives guys like McDavid and Draisaitl, and somehow Nugent Hopkins never runs out of energy.
Yeah,
and
it's good for him. He's a good story.
Man, isn't he? And he's taken a lot of heat. Granted, there's a lot of heat that goes around Edmonton. I wouldn't want to be a goaltender there, but you're exactly right. Both of these teams have similar things happening and clicking for them. They're getting stronger as the playoffs go on. As each series goes on, the players are getting stronger. They're getting stronger as a team. And the maybe the little holes in the cheese aren't quite there anymore.
Yeah, they become a lot smaller.
Yeah, exactly.
They become a lot more condensed, and it's to watch by us. The best example is in the locker room. Is that it's set from McDavid or Barkov in the leadership down that they play so hard. But when you go home after the end of the game, once it becomes like that and you become such a team, you're not afraid of going home and playing bad and just walking into your house and seeing your family or your wife and saying, geez, I feel terrible. I just played awful tonight. Gee, can I get out about me? You don't have that kind of, you're worried, man, I just let my teammate down. That guy works so hard and he just busts his ass every time that he's out there. It's just a crushing feeling. Once you take the I and the me out of it, and it becomes about that guy beside you that's working so hard, and the fear of letting him down, and it goes to the next person. I have a fear of letting that person down. That's what it's all about. That's when you start to recognize maybe the dream is possible here, because everyone is working so incredibly hard. The playoffs, it's the hardest trophy in sports to win. You have to battle and then go through it. But the ice bags never felt so good. The fatigue has never felt so good. So there's a lot of pressure at this time, but there's a lot of joy that goes behind it. And part of that's just because of this brotherhood that you've developed.
There was a point in time where the Oilers were dead last, and they were here. And I remember saying to Warren Reichel, who's a scout for the Oilers, I was like, I'm ready to slit my wrist the long way. I cannot take another game like this. I can't. I've never been so frustrated as an Oiler fan, and there's been some frustrating times. And Dale Talon was like, don't worry about it. They're going to be fine. So then a couple months ago, Dale said to me at the rink, what did I tell you about the Oilers? I said they're going to be fine. I was like, I know, Dale, but from a fan standpoint, it's hard not to get stressed out. But I remember there was a time where Edmonton was 2-90, whatever the hell. They were so bad. And Rod and I were watching the game, and McDavid and Draisaitl were pumping each other up on the bench, and Rod goes, That's a team right there.
Yeah.
That's what brought Edmonton out of the basement 100%.
Yeah, that's part of it. And identifying roles and taking responsibility. Knobloch and bringing in Paul Coffey has it on the back end. That's going to help. He's seen in everything. I was watching after the Western Conference and they're celebrating.
Yeah.
Paul Coffey's just on the ice.
Standing there.
I've been here 1,000 times.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. He's just standing there with this look on his face. He's not even smiling.
Yeah.
He's just like, well, guys, I've experienced this. You guys go enjoy it.
Yeah, go enjoy it on the ice. So that's that start that Edmonton had. And if you dive into the numbers, the analytics behind it, it wasn't bad analytically speaking. You could see that this team maybe could explode, but when Woodcroft was there was a lot of pinches down the boards, no support, 3-on-2s, 2-on-1s. You're losing games that you're playing better than the other team, and games that you probably should have won and got off to a better start. And Jay Woodcroft had to take the fall for it. Maybe it does happen, but probably not. The change was made, that loss in San Jose. That was a brutal loss on the road, and all of a sudden that field Woodcroft stayed. And to go out and Chris Knobloch, his relationship, you go back to Erie and coaching Connor McDavid in the Ontario Hockey League. You bring in a coach that's young and new. You buffer him with Paul Coffey. And the superstar on your team has a relationship with them as well. So that's a great place to start. All of a sudden, the coach, even though he's young, can go right to the captain, Connor McDavid, and this is what I need out of you. This is what my expectations for you are to lead this team. And Connor McDavid can say, yes, okay, I know you, I understand you, I got you. And Draisaitl, the same part, and Ken Holland too. Both the GMs here have done phenomenal jobs. Bill Zito, out of this world. He's knocked it out of the park, and the small additions at the trade deadline by Ken Holland to bring in some veteran pieces to the Oilers, and you add the whole recipe together for the Panthers side. It's been a build-up right from the start of the year, and it's a little different from the Edmonton side, but still they both reached where they wanted to go, the ultimate goal at the end.
Mm-hmm. I remember when, I felt like it was probably time for Edmonton. We sat here and said, what should Edmonton do? And it was like, I don't know if it's time for the coach to go yet. And then Jack Campbell got waived. Yeah. And it was like, okay, this is our last kick at the can. Otherwise, the coach has to go next. And it was like maybe 2 weeks, not even later, he was gone. I remember thinking, who? But every person that I talked to that ever played for him, a kid from my hometown played for Knobloch in Kootenay. Yeah. He's like, he's the best coach I ever played for.
That's about where I grew up.
Yeah. So it's everybody who's ever played for him or who knows of him has nothing but good things to say. And that's the kind of guy you want. Mm-hmm. You need a guy like that on your team. But kind of looking back now at the playoffs.
You got polar opposites as far as the coaches go here.
100%. 100%.
And Paul Maurice has been at it for forever.
Yeah,
trying to get his first cup, and so it's the parallels between. There's a lot of drastic differences between the two teams, and a lot of praise to Chris Knobloch, a lot of praise to Paul Maurice too, the way that he's handled this Panther group, and they believe in him. And he said, as far as like Chris Knobloch too, to get to this point where it has to happen, the Panthers now have become self-sustaining as a team. He doesn't have to do a lot of coaching anymore. If you're coaching at this time of year, you're not winning playoff series.
That's what I said last.
Yeah, that's where Chris Knobloch had to get to in a hurry. That's where Paul Maurice was trying to get to last year with his team. It took to the All-Star break, but this year, I can coach. I can tweak a little bit, but I know those guys in that room are going to give 100%. I know when they're off a little beat and maybe need a little push in the right direction. But for the most part, once that dressing room becomes self-sustaining and the leadership and everyone in there can take care of themselves and they don't need that voice of the coach, that's when all the systems are dialed up to perfection and you got everything cooking the way that you need it to be. The
Panthers have had some very good coaches come through here over the past 4 or 5 years. And I don't think it plays a huge role, but I do think it has an effect on the guys that have been here this whole time. They're being groomed and raised essentially by the other. There's been some great coaches here like Andrew Brunette, Joel Quenneville. These are good coaches. Yep. It leads to a point where Paul Maurice, who goes from a hockey hotbed of getting pressure and getting bitched at and whatever else, God knows he left because of it, comes here and it's like, now I can think straight.
Yeah.
Now I have what could be better than playing hockey or coaching hockey in South Florida? Your environment's good. Everybody's happy.
Yeah, it's a breath. Everyone needs a fresh breath at some time just to come up for air. And for Paul Maurice in Winnipeg, it had run its course with a lot of the players and the fan base, and it was time for change. And that change came here, but the change was drastic. You talked about Quenneville and then Brunette, and that was that President's Trophy team. But the next year, he changed that with the Tkachuk trade, changed the whole dynamic of what he wanted this team to do as far as the defensive structure, dump it in, play hard. And it took them a long time to kind of grasp on. They were run and gun. 3-on-2, it was just go. And it was fun hockey to watch. And it kind of just did a whole 180 U-turn. And Maurice was, we're going to get here. We're going to get to this point of where it's defense first. It's mandated hard work that you can't take shifts off. And it took for everyone to kind of buy into that philosophy, and you could see it start to happen after the All-Star break last year. Was it going to be too little, too late? And that's where the difference lies with this Panther team last year. It was chase until game 81, game 82 to get into the playoffs. This year it's been more of a crescendo. We understand, get off to a good start. We know where we're going. We're going to get in the playoffs. Keep building. And this style is tough to play 82 games. At that, there's going to be nights. But when it's on, and they won a lot of games during the regular season. But that's why I said play playoff hockey during the regular season. And once you get to that point, once you get to the playoffs, then you can play that style almost all the time because you're so ramped up and so ready to go. And that's what this Panther team this year has, the crescendo and the buildup. Once that puck dropped for the start of the playoffs, they knew exactly what to expect and where they wanted to go.
We went live. Rod and I went live on the Cats and Bolts Instagram the other night. Must have been Monday night. And we were talking about bringing you on the show. And I was like, the one person that has learned how to explain the game to people who don't have anybody explaining the game to them is you. You figure out you can explain the game to anybody on any level. Any level. You put it out there. It's like the way you speak. Nobody else does that, Bill. Like literally.
Well, thank you.
I can watch the NHL Network and it's like, yeah, there's hockey guys on there. There's hockey players on there. They ask their opinion and whatever. And that's great. Nobody does it like you do.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I was like, listen, this guy has spent 30 years, and again, not to insult people, but dumbing down the game. You're used to explaining it to Floridians.
Yeah,
right?
and it's not just where I come from and dumbing down the game or whatever you want to explain it to people. There is a way to get out there with the hockey knowledge and to put it out, but if it can be things that are complicated can be explained easily. If you want to put it into basic context and try to go there with the X's and O's, you don't have to over-explain to everyone and to get everyone to grasp exactly what you're trying to throw out there.
There's probably a big, if I had to guess the percentage of knowledge that the average fan knows, let's say it's 50%. Mm-hmm. You know 100%. You know what I'm saying? Like there's so much stuff behind the scenes that you're so good at explaining, like run and gun. A lot of people probably don't know what that is. Like the average fan is going to watch for that shit. But I feel like you need to be a coach or something. Like there's something that needs to happen.
I got traded enough as a player. Broadcasting, I've actually been able to stay down here in South Florida for a bit. That has been nice. I love coaches and love what they do. Trading and getting bounced around was tough. Coach lifespans and for general. It's not, the shelf life's not long enough for me, unfortunately.
What about like minor hockey?
Yeah, well, I coach kids all the time. Maybe that's part of it because the learn to play programs down here that I run for the 5 to 9 year old kids every once a week. Yeah, that's where the basic explaining comes to the
Yeah.
kids and getting it out. And that's one of the treats and joys for me personally down here is with those Learn to Play programs, 5 to 9-year-old kids from Kendall all the way up to West Palm, 7 different rinks. And that's the big difference here with the Florida and what we've seen and the growth. And we're getting another rink put in to West Palm. But you got all these rinks and you have all these people. And our 5 to 9-year-old clinics, we have 40, 50 kids out there once a week, every weekend at all 7 different rinks when we travel to go down. And that's one of the pure joys for me. Maybe that's where the basic simplicity of it comes from.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you can broadcast hockey on the radio as well as you do, that's truly a gift. Listening to you and Doug on the radio is just, it's fantastic. And ever since I moved to Florida, I've lived all over, different places in the U.S. and I'm like, ooh, some of the announcers are pretty bad. But when I came to Florida, I was like, who is the color guy? Like watching it on TV. And when I found out it was Moeller, I was like, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What a beauty he is.
Yes, he is.
But he's cut from a different cloth. That guy, he's cut from that Red Deer cloth. But just listening to you on the radio, it's so great. And I know most fans probably don't because they're either watching it on TV or they're at the game. But
it's good. It's the radio, and too, my partner Doug, he's had a long journey. He pumped it out in the East Coast Hockey League for a long time, rode the buses, did it in the American Hockey League. And when you get back into work, he true professional all the way through.
Absolutely.
And really good. So it's been a pleasure. I worked with Goldie on the TV side, and he, from those roles, we got some of the best in the business. And Doug, when I watch his preparation and the way that he handles himself, you can see the journeys that he's had. And that's part of it. When I sit beside a play-by-play guy that's putting that kind of work into it, on my end of it, I have to hold up my end of my. I need to hold up my end of the bargain. Like that's part of what we're talking about with teams is you're going to come up and show that kind of preparation. My preparation has to be the same. That's my preparation, NHL Network and stuff. Just like on the hockey side, is something that you take pride in and you enjoy. So no matter if 5 people are listening or 10 or 20,000, it just doesn't matter to me. The product has to be set to the standard that you expect of yourself and that person beside you expects.
Not just a pretty face, Bill. Okay, so all of that aside, everybody's going to want to know this. What do you feel the Panthers need to do to win this series?
More of the same of what they've done. That heavy forechecking pressure. Their neutral zone is really good. What they're able to do, muddy up the waters. Can you slow that speed of Connor McDavid down and the Edmonton Oilers? The Panthers, in general, at their best, don't give up a lot of 3-on-2s or 2-on-1s against. They become few and far between. And a lot of the time, when you start humming, we've seen it throughout these playoffs, you force the other team to play in their end a lot, play defense. That Game 6 that Edmonton won against Dallas, the second and third period, that heavy forecheck at Dallas, a lot of time down in their end. If the Panthers can do that, that's their forte. If they're able to force Connor McDavid to play defense, Draisaitl play in their own end, expand that energy, how much left in the tank do they have to go offensively? That becomes the question. And then if the 3-on-2s and 2-on-1s aren't developing for the Edmonton Oilers, is there enough forecheck presence on their side to kind of tilt that ice back in the favor? That's what I did not see from Tampa Bay. I did not see from Boston. Boston at times, the New York Rangers. When it got going downhill for the Panthers, there wasn't those momentum-changing shifts where the other team could come down and spend a lot of time down in the Panthers' end to kind of squash that momentum. And you have to stay out of the penalty box. It's imperative. As good as this Panthers team has been on the penalty kill, I do not want to take my chances 4 or 5 times a night against that Edmonton power play. That those 4 power play goals the last 2 games against Dallas, that sealed the deal, and they come in with a lot of confidence. So it comes down to that zone time. Pay attention to the zone time in the games, how much that is going one way or the other. If they can do that, and if the Panthers can just slow down, you're not going to stop McDavid, Draisaitl, contain them. That has to be the word, containment to some level. Then they have a really good chance in this series.
I think that these are two similar teams in so many ways, but two completely different teams, about how they have to play each other and whatever. And, you talk about the Oilers power play. Not only is it lethal if Draisaitl's out there on the wing waiting for that one-timer, but the one thing that I've seen about the Oilers on the power play is if they miss that play, there's another one right behind. And that's what makes them dangerous. And what you talked about Dallas with the forecheck, Dallas played a great game of hockey in that last game. Yeah. It wasn't the best game I've seen them play, but they pushed Edmonton.
But that's when they were up against the ropes, when it mattered most. That's when they knew they had to go full tilt. And that's where Edmonton, give credit to Stuart Skinner. Battled, and all of a sudden he's pulled. Is the net going to be his? Pickard gets in a couple of games, but the ceiling for Skinner is higher than Pickard. There's no question.
Oh, of course.
When Skinner's at his best, he's better than Pickard. So Skinner had to go back in there. And he was good throughout that Dallas series, but when you needed your goaltender the most, he was able to stand tall. He was ginormous in Game 6, and from that pressure when it was desperation mode from Dallas, and that's where Edmonton, you found a way to win the game. That's where the Oiler team is different, and maybe at the start of the year, to find a way to win a game where they're getting obliterated down in second, third, just block shots, get in shooting lanes, rely on our goaltender, find a way. Both these teams are really good at just finding ways to win. That's where you go to here. Can you do it when it matters most in the Stanley Cup final?
The one thing, and being a diehard Oilers fan, I don't remember not being an Oilers fan. Like I came out of the womb like this.
Yeah.
But for 20 years, I've been complaining about the Oilers' defense. And since since Paul Coffey came in, I've seen the way Edmonton moves the puck out of their end.
Quick and fast, go.
Like Vegas last year, 1 pass, 2 pass, it's gone. And the Oilers do that, and they're blocking shots, and I'm in shock a little bit about what I've seen, but I think that was the difference in that game against Dallas. Like you said, you got a guy like Darnell Nurse who takes a lot of heat. He's got a big contract. The Oilers fans are on his ass all the time. And he played probably the best hockey I've ever seen him play in that Dallas series.
Well, he had 12 hits in Game 5 and 11 or 12 block shots in Game 6.
Yeah.
No matter the contract value, there's going to be heat behind that.
Of course.
But that's where it comes
in. Bobrovsky.
Yeah. That's where it comes down into your leadership group, that Stuart Skinner's not playing well. He gets back into the net. Darnell Nurse is not going well. The outside noise is just white noise. The boys inside that room, just same thing on the Panthers. We got you. We got you. Don't worry about it. Go do your thing. We got you. It's just about lifting them up. Stuart Skinner, we got you. Just be comfortable in net. Make the saves. The rest of this group here, we're going to take care of our business. You do your end of it. Everything's going to be fine. And that's what you saw from Darnell Nurse. They're able to shut out the noise. Very physical. Game 5, the block shots in Game 6. Who cares about the if you win a Stanley Cup, it doesn't matter about contracts. The Sergei Bobrovsky, his contract was under heat forever.
I know.
The run to the finals last year paid off the contract. Again, this year, it's $70 million would have been good for 2 years if you get this out of it.
Right.
If you get a Stanley Cup out of it, if you sign Sergei Bobrovsky for 2, it is priceless. So Darnell Nurse, whatever he's making, or any of these players, if you actually get that Stanley Cup, contracts are meaningless to the actual number. He was a part of it. Yes, that's maybe a bit overpaid, but we got the ultimate job done, and there's 31 teams at the end of this that are going to be wanting that hardware.
I think the one thing that I've really been impressed with Connor McDavid with, especially this year, is his leadership. He's the guy that can come out and do what he needs to do at the drop of a hat. A couple years ago when they played Calgary in the playoffs, and it was Game 5, Edmonton beat him in 5 games. Nobody thought the Oilers were going to beat the Flames. And that Game 5, McDavid came out like there was a bug up his ass. He was hitting everybody. And I'm like, this is what your captain needs to do. And this year, he's doing it. But more importantly, he's taking charge of the press conference after the game.
Yeah.
They'll ask a question. No, I'm answering that. you're not going to cut down my teammate. I'm going to stand up for this guy.
Yeah.
And like you said, when you do that, Barkov probably does it a little quieter because it's just a different style of a captain. But the captaincy, I think, is just the most important thing on these two teams right now, because I don't feel like there's a lot of panic on either side, as there shouldn't be at this time of year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Connor McDavid, watching his press conferences, stern to the point, matter of fact. There's not, even after the win, and it's point blank. This is where we want to go. And the Panthers, from that side of it, you mentioned Barkov's kind of the quiet leadership. It's humble. It's more about, I'm going to lead by example and part of the ice. But he's got a great buffer in the room too, as far as Tkachuk and there's some loud. They got a good combination of some of these guys that are loud and boisterous and kind of in your face all the time, that are going to be outspoken and just anything that comes to the mind. And then you got Gustav Forsling, very quiet but goes about. Same thing. Barkov's grabbed onto this captaincy, meant a lot, and it's different in the two media markets of the way you have to approach it. Barkov here can go about, it's quiet, be out there, be out front, be outspoken. It doesn't always have to lambaste into a reporter and get into the questions that might just think, where's that coming from?
Yeah.
Where Edmonton, it's the swarm up there, whether they're getting on Darnell Nurse or something like that. The noise can be much louder in a Canadian market. That's just the way that it is. The noise with all the talk shows and everything that's represented. So the leadership style maybe has to come out differently, but both these guys have it in spades. And all credit to them. They both have the C on their chest and deserve it.
Watched the TNT post-game show the other night, which I don't typically do because I need to go to bed, but I couldn't sleep after Game 6. And actually, it was after Game 5, and John Cooper said, he's like, that Game 6 is the hardest to win going back home because you're up 3-2, you're going home, but you have all these distractions. If you're the away team, there's no distractions. And I think that Edmonton, this is a big thing for them to start on the road because they've played every other day for like a month, and so they went to 7 games against Vancouver. It's been nonstop. And so what's been going on in Edmonton is absolute chaos right now. And I think they needed to get away from that for a second.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's good for momentum. But if they can win one here and go back to Edmonton for a couple of games, they're getting it because the fans are like going bonkers. They can't even sit still.
Yeah, it's you come down the road. If you win 1 out of 2 on the road, you get home ice advantage into a best of 5 series. If you split it, if you happen the other way, the only flip side of that is that if you come down and don't get either one of it, and then you're forced back into a building, and you're all of a sudden you come down and expect maybe to steal one of those first 2 games, and the home team comes out 2-0. You do have, you say, well, we got to go back home and hold serve, but there becomes now you go back into Edmonton and all this rabid fan base that was expecting the split. It takes on a whole different meaning if it's 0-2. So yes, it's fine to start on the road, but you do have to get one of those 2 wins at the very minimum, because if it doesn't, it can be advantageous to start on the road, but if it's down 2-0, and you talked about the rabid fan base, now the noise in Edmonton's loud. It's coming back now. Now the pressure goes ramped huge onto those home games where you're starting. You don't have home ice advantage, and it becomes almost a must that you win 2 games at home. So there's pros and cons to both of it. Everyone's going to say what they want. I know the Panthers are going to be happy with starting at home, not having to travel off the bat. Maybe Edmonton's happy to come down here. We're just going to have to see how it unfolds, Serena.
That's right. Well, look at that Dallas-Vegas series. 2 wins away. It went 2-2. It was a bizarre series, but...
Well, every game takes on its life of its own.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why people are like, they want predictions. They want this. I'm like, I don't think shut up, Ben. Ben laughs because I refuse to give predictions. And even especially in this series, I don't think anybody in their right mind could logically be like, I know for a fact this is going to happen.
No, you can't.
You can't. Thank you.
It's impossible.
Thank you.
Because anything can happen. One bad bounce in a game, it changes Our first game up in New York, it's so close, and Shesterkin throws the puck away, and Verhaeghe gets it and throws it at the net, and Lafreniere knocks it into his own net. A meaningless play.
Yes.
But ends up that ends up being the one that salts it away. It's just the quirky bounces at certain times that all of a sudden a power play at the right time can look different. Leads goes off the crossbar instead into the stands, or it goes crossbar into the net. The margin of error and the fine lines now become skewed. They're so minuscule once you come to this point.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see what happens. And I was telling somebody the other day, we were talking about the Tampa series here, and Florida outplayed Tampa, like no question. But what a turning point that Barkov save was, or Bobrovsky save was, because Tampa was up in that game. I think it was 2-1.
Yeah.
If Tampa scores on that,
Yes.
they're going home with a split.
Yes.
That's a different series all day.
Yep.
But that was, I mean, I don't know about you, but that was probably the most electric thing I've ever seen live.
Yeah, that's close. The best example of that you can say of playoff hockey and how close the margins are, you go back to our first round series against Boston last year. They have a 3-1 series lead on us. Brad Marchand has a breakaway in game number 5 to end the series in 5 games with 5 seconds on the clock. Bobrovsky makes the save. The Panthers win in overtime. You go to game 6. Boston has the lead going into the third period. They had lost, I don't believe they had lost a regulation game after leading after 2 periods all season long. So not only did the Panthers come back, tie it up, but Boston got another lead. Panthers tied up. Boston got a third lead and relinquished that. The Panthers ended up winning the game 6-5. And that is Sandy to force game 7. And the Panthers had to score with a minute and a half on the clock with the goaltender pulled in game 7 to force another overtime. If you were to replay all those sequences out again, you're looking at the odds of that for the Panthers coming out on the right side are probably 1 in 100. But that's playoff hockey. It did happen, and it happened in the right fashion. Edmonton probably can go back. We can go back and look at all kinds of different moments that changed the trajectory of the playoffs.
I'm a firm believer, though, that if you blow a 2-goal lead, you don't deserve to win the hockey game.
Yeah.
And I've seen the Oilers do it more times than not. The one thing I feel like they're not doing is doing that this year in the playoffs. But game 7 against Vancouver, Edmonton was up 3-0 going into the third period. I don't know one Oiler fan that was confident. We're all crapping ourselves. We're up 3 goals. Someone tweeted, as a grizzled old Oilers fan, I am still not confident we're going to win this game. I'm happy with what's happening, but I still don't trust them. And we were all, everyone was like, yep, that's me. Yep, that's me. I was sweating the whole time. It was a 3-2 final.
Yep.
Because Edmonton tried to blow it. And had they wouldn't have deserved to win. So we'll see what happens. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
This is the pinnacle. This is the Panther team just trying for redemption, and we got the superstars on the big stage on the Edmonton side for the first time. Great for the game of hockey, in my personal opinion. The storylines, there's so much to grasp onto in this series. We might have a whole nation rooting against us. I'm not sure how.
Oh, I don't think so. There's a big argument about that up there. Yeah. There's a big argument about that.
So, but anyway, it's the storyline. The storylines are great, and hopefully we have what we have. The 2 best teams. Well, we do. We got the best team in the Western Conference going against the best team in the Eastern Conference, and now it's just up to the players. So they're going to decide it, and one of these teams is going to walk out with that hardware.
Yeah. Either way, I think it'll be a tight one.
Yeah.
It could be a 4-game sweep and be 1-goal games. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that happened with us with Carolina last year. We swept them, but
100%.
The games were incredibly tight.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
All right.
And we'll see what happens in a couple weeks. Maybe you'll be returning by my choice. Maybe you will not be.
One of us might have to buy dinner after one of the series.
Yeah. Yes. And just like that, a Cats and Bolts podcast is brought to you by the Beach House in Pompano and Baresco and by DraftKings. And maybe I'm not going to bet. I can't bet because I always lose. No, thank you.
All right.
Thanks so much for joining me, Bill. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see what happens next week. Have a great day.